Hi, I'm Walter. I'm the Dutch mentor. Welcome back to the S.M.A.R.T Performance Podcast, where S stands for self-care, M for mindful growth, A for adaptive problem solving, R for rhythmic operation, T for building a thriving community, and of course, P for performance. I'm really happy to have Dr. Lola here with me today. We're going to talk about an interesting topic that is something that you need to own. I've talked about this in the past. Performance evaluations are garbage. These are checklist items that don't lead to anything and often frustration. But you owning your pathway is something that you are in charge of, and nobody can take that away from you. But it's also often the barrier to you getting to where you want to go if you don't take meaningful action. Like always, this is a quick 15, 20 minutes. It will be actionable, so stick with us. And Dr. Lola, thank you very much for joining me today, all the way from San Diego. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. And thanks for having me here, Walter. My name is Lola. As I said, I am based in San Diego. I am a mom of three, working backwards because that's my whole life right now. I also run three different organizations. One of them is an IT tech company where I lead operations and HR. And then I have a consulting firm where I offer services to companies around building employee resource groups. And then I have a nonprofit that is my passion work. It's called Immigrants Incorporate. And I love to build communities for immigrant professionals that are navigating the corporate world. So that sums up all the things I'm doing right now.
Sounds like you are completely bored and have nothing to do and you're looking for more
Oh,
work.
absolutely.
Well, listen, it is. I love the fact that you have a full plate today, but I'm 100% sure that that's not where you start. And often we do what we do today because we identify the problem or somebody else identified the problem for you. So take me back to wherever you started, to where you figured out that, listen, I better be in charge of my career because nobody is going to do it for me.
Yeah, so I don't think it's one moment. I think it's a couple of moments. So I was never the child that knew exactly what they wanted to be. You know, some people know what they want to do when they're kids. I didn't. But I was fortunate. I grew up in Nigeria and my dad was a college professor. So you already know I have an advantage. I had somebody who was helping me talk through, what subjects do you like? I was curious and I loved curious research kind of bench work. And so biology and the sciences, I was really good at it. And my dad said, "You want to be a doctor?" I'm like, "Sure, go to medicine." So I got into school to study biochemistry for my bachelor's, thinking I would go into medical school. But then during the first year, I started exploring corporate work. And I told my dad, I don't think I want to work in a hospital because first, I can't stand the sight of blood, which is like a major thing.
Pretty
Uh,
problematic.
but what he did was he helped me get internships. So I did a couple of internships during my 5 year program. One of the internship was 6 month long, one was 3 months. And so I took breaks within my 5 year program to do admin internship, operational internships, research internships. And I ended up graduating my bachelor's in biochemistry. And then I worked for a little bit and I wanted to get my master's outside the country. Again, it was that decision to say, I do want to get an advanced degree and I want to get it outside of this country because if I'm studying the sciences, I want to have access to some of the, great labs in the US. So I did my master's in biotech. But again, that was also another decision there because my biotech master's program had 3 tracks. And I was one of 2 people in my cohort that took the management track. Because at that point, I realized I was bored at the bench. I didn't want to run experiments all day, every day in my regular life. And so I chose the path that 99% of the people in my program were doing was a master's in biotech with a concentration in molecular biology. And I didn't. I did the business track. So I got to be in class with MBA students while studying biotech. And I found out I loved it. I just discovered that passion for I love understanding and learning how things work, understanding people's personality with work. And so I ended up working in biotech for a number of years and transitioned my career in between. And I thought I was going to be a corporate girl. I always used to say growing up, I am not an entrepreneur, I can't run a business. I just want to work at a big company, pays me good money, and that I can do different roles. But be careful what you say because when entrepreneurship came calling, I thought I was just doing it for a few minutes, and I ended up doing it for longer than I thought, and then following just the next step after that.
Listen, it sounds to me that you went on a journey, and that journey has twists and turns. And that's one thing is that sometimes I work with bachelor and MHA students a lot, as an a lecturer and adjunct professor, and too often they have this straight line. I need to leave school and go straight to the top. I said, well, listen, that's not how it really works in the real world. But I love the fact how you described that upon your father's encouragement to go out and kind of get a little taste of this and a little taste of that. And that's what in my individual development plan program, talk about the 70-20-10 approach, right? Start off with the 10%. You have to get your degrees, right? That's your ticket in. That doesn't make you who you are, but it's certainly a requirement in most jobs today. It is about working with somebody else, like your father, like coach or mentor, or somebody you trust. But it is that 70% of the time that people tend to spend in a box. That the learning is limited. Going outside of that box and learning while you're in your role, and learning from going to do internships is so critically important. So dive a little deeper into that for me. How would somebody who's now listening to this and say, listen, you know what? I'm interested in a job beyond what I'm doing today. How can they go out and taste it? How can they exercise that? And how can they set themselves up for success to learn without having to take the leap of faith by quitting the job and diving into it straight away?
Oh, absolutely. I love that because that immediately reminded me of my experience when I was working in supply chain within the operations team. And I had a mentor. I was part of a platform where they match you with mentors. You get to have a conversation with them. And I remembered when she asked me, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And I was like, I think I'm very strategic, which is now I think about it, I'm like, that was such a dumb statement. But I was like, I think I'm very strategic. So I want to work in the strategy department of my company. And she said, do you know what they do in the strategy department? I was like, I don't know. I guess they're strategic people. And she said, that's your assignment for this month. I want you to go find somebody that works in that department at your company and have a conversation with them to know more about what they do. And I went to find somebody through the company org chart. Again, the best time to kind of have this is when you have a job because you have access to so much more internally. And so I went to find somebody and I scheduled a call with her. And I asked her what their department, what they do. And I told her I was exploring career options. And she told me about monitoring the external market and trying to make business decision for the company. And I'm like, I don't want to monitor the external. That does not sound like what I thought it was. And so I came back to my mentor. I was like, no, that's not the department I want to work on. And she's like, what made you choose strategy as a department? I was like, I love working with people. I want to understand how we design. I was talking about all these, and she's like, have you talking to the HR and culture platform at your company? And I was like, are they not HR people, right? Like they help you get hired. She's like, go talk to somebody in your culture platform. And so I was exposed to this whole world, actually looking at the org chart and picking people and talking to them about HR is so broad. There's talent development, there's sourcing, there's recruiting, there's early career development, there's the onboarding HR. But that's where I found out I was more drawn to. And I started showing up and volunteering there and started supporting, career advancement initiatives. So I would think if you are employed and you are trying to figure out that next step, the best place to start is where you are right now. People are more liable to say yes to you because you work at the company.
That is advice is golden, right? And people need to take that to heart. So I teach the fellowship advancement courses around the country on a regular basis. And people say, well, give me more questions so I can study. But that's not what the answer lies. Listen, studying questions and understanding the structure is important. But what is far more important for you to go to HR or to IT or to quality improvement or to governance or to leadership, go find the right people and have lunch with them. Start building a partnership with them. Listen to what the real world is. And I love your example about strategy. Yes, strategy is all about micro and macro market analysis, right? It's boring surveys, focus groups, and kind of peek your head around the corner and see what the competition is up to near and far away. It's not for everybody, but critically important work because that's how the company can stay in business over the long run. But operations or HR is very, very different. So thank you for putting that out there. So now that you went through these experiences, right? So how did you now finally decide for yourself this is what I want to do. And how did you then start transferring your knowledge and experiences and the role that you were in to get into the track that you really wanted to be in?
Yeah, so a lot of the decisions were made from a place of clarity too, of decluttering and just letting go of what wasn't working. So in 2020, I had my third child in January of that year. And so my first two were home. I was overwhelmed. I was working within corporate America. I was working on the culture platform. I was doing what I loved, but I didn't love where I was doing it. And so I was privileged that I was able to step away. I had a conversation with my husband. It was last minute, and I was like, I really need a break. And so I put in my 3 weeks notice, stepped away. And at the same time, he was building his IT company. And he said, I just won this big contract. We're about to start hiring people. Do you want to help me kind of hire people? And I was like, sure, I can figure it out. And so I joined, and I realized I'm finding what I love more than what I was doing. And so our company is called Sapient Logic. We started it in 2020, and now we have 23 employees, full-time engineers. But I'm at the back end there. I'm helping to like hire people, to build our culture, to design our budgets, working with our finance. And I found out I love that. It keeps me active. It keeps my mind sharp. I love doing multiple different things with the same broad vision. So that part of entrepreneurship, leading a business that is more stable and structured, because we're in the defense space, that works very well as my W-2 job. And then in the process of doing that, which is a little more structured job, I started exploring how can I go back to corporate America in a way that I really want to. Part of why I was overwhelmed in 2020 was because I didn't like where I was. And some of the gaps that I recognized then was around the programs that I was managing were employee resource group programs within companies. And I didn't see that the leadership was like partnering to build these communities well. And so I started EQI mindset, equity and inclusion mindset, with a focus on employee resource groups. How can companies start right? How can companies develop them right? How can these groups be built into the business mechanism of the organization in a very sustainable way? And so I've just steadily built that by having conversations with companies, working with clients, and I've developed workshops and speaking topics around these that I take to HR and talent conferences, not DEI conferences, HR and talent spaces, because this is where the people that are managing people and internal programs and have all these gaps that I'm able to bring into it. So I think I've been fortunate to have a job but also build my passion along the way.
I love it. It is nice, and you should never be afraid to pivot. Pivot in your career either, right? It is that. Sadly, I think it is about 60% of the people go to work not loving what they do. But think about being 30 years in a role that you really don't love to do. You deserve better, right? So you need to be on a continuous pursuit of asking yourself and connecting the 4 Ps: my purpose and passion on the heart level, and then which are the people and processes I want to work with. As you age, things can change, and that's okay. It is something that you have to kind of assess for yourself, and then make these pivots at the right time. Not being irresponsible by resigning and not having a backup plan, but if you want to do something else, start building the backup plan, that plan B and C in the background, including saving money so you have financial security, building out your really robust network. Go taste test it, right? Go do that internship, hang out before you make that leap of faith in order to do that. So thank you for sharing that very interesting journey. So what do you feel? And let's tie back to that individual development plan or your journey plan. What are the 2 or 3 actionable items that you would say to somebody who's listening right now, and you spike their interest? What should they do in order to get themselves ready to explore the options?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think I'm also in that space now. It's the same thing. Like, make sure you take an audit. Like, actually sit down and take an audit of where I am right now. Because as you said, things change. You're changing, you are evolving, the things that you want is different. So take stock of what is in your big giant circle right now. Do you have little kids? Do you have some other passion that you haven't even explored at all? Take stock of where you spend the bulk of your time right now. What are the things you enjoy most that you haven't had time for, right? How can I do more of that? You don't have to make drastic decisions like quitting overnight. Like, that's not even recommended. But if we don't take an audit of where we are, and maybe you're spending 90% of your time on something that is draining the life out of you, you need to make a change. But if you don't take a audit to understand, you might be missing the thing that you could be spending more time on. So take a audit. Where am I in my life right now? What are the things that bring me joy? What are the things draining me? How can I do more of this thing and flip my percentages around? I love how you talked about education. At some point you might be in school and that's a 10%, but what else should you be doing? What's in your circle? So if there's any gap you notice, even if your plan is a long-term plan, what are the little things I can do right now to start to shift these percentages, right? Connections. What communities do I need to plug into if I know this is where I want to go? And then what things do I need to step away from that I'm spending more time on now that I don't really want to do is just because it's a habit, right? So that personal audit is really important.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you for that. Where can we find you if they want more information?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Dr. Lola Adeyemo. But I'm also, my personal website is Dr. Lola dash Adeyemo, ADEYEMO.com. And happy to chat. LinkedIn is usually the best way where I would respond. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course it is, and I will certainly make sure that gets into the notes itself too. So, as a closing thought for yourself, what is something that you want somebody who's listening to this to take away from our conversation?
Don't box yourself. Your career is yours. You own your career and you have no idea so many things that you haven't tapped into. So take ownership of your career and go do that next thing for yourself.
Yeah, I think it is don't allow things to happen by chance, right? It is that you need to make time and put effort into it. And we are indeed truly locked into a square box of what we know. And if you really want to live a full life, you have to look outside of that box while you're creating the environment to do that. And again, I'll go back to the audience here is that use that 70-20-10 approach, right? 10% it is education, undeniable. You have to go pursue that. 20%, don't go at it alone, right? Nobody went to the Olympics a couple of months ago without a coach or a mentor. Why should you, right? Find people who can help and guide you along the way, paid or unpaid, but you need to have a trust partner in that process itself. But the 70% is so critically important, as we talked about. You have to go out and try new things. You have to put yourself out there. You cannot wait for people to come to you and do it for you because that's unlikely to happen. And the last thing you want to do is when you're 65 years old, hopefully collecting Social Security at that point in time, to look back with regret. I worked for 40 years on a job I don't even like, right? What is your legacy? And your legacy should be working in areas of deep passion. So you can too create an environment that other people can thrive into the future, no matter what that is. So again, Dr. Lola, thank you very much for joining me today. And again, the key here is to take action, right? Go to the Apple Store, download the Dutch Mentor app, start working in that on a daily basis, just 15 minutes a day, you too can be. And what we talked about, the individual development plan, your journey mapping, can all be found in the app itself. Thank you very much for joining me today. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and see you at the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.